I really appreciate all of you coming. I'm very happy to be able to partner with ActionCoach to talk about team building and building effective teams. The reason why I like to do stuff with ActionCoach is that ActionCoach's clients and the folks that are interested in it are interested in having their businesses grow. And there's a whole big significant class of people that start their own business to have a job, or maybe people start businesses because they have these assets and they want the asset to grow and become something else, to do something with it, to sell it, to give it to your children, to pass it on, to build something that's going to last for a long, long time. And so if you're doing stuff like this, my thinking is that that's what you're interested in doing, is you're interested in building your business, building your asset, and making it work. And how you can do that is really growing the revenues, growing the assets, but then also working on containing and maintaining the liabilities in a business, which there's a lot of ways to do that. It's not just legal contracts and stuff. It's actual planning and anticipating situations and having stuff written down and working on taking the risk in your business and shrinking it. Because when the positive stuff is bigger than the negative stuff, at least I think in math, that's good. And that's the way this is supposed to work. And then when you have that negative stuff, you encapsulate it and then you figure out what to do with it, which is where I come in. I help you pass that risk to somebody else through contracts or through the engagement that you have, or you go out and you get insurance to insure the risk, to make sure that it's taken care of and you're not impacted by it. So to start with that, that's where if you're gonna start a business, if you're gonna continue your business, you really need to have a good foundation for your business, and that's where forming a corporate entity and actually really doing it. It's not a hobby anymore. It's actually your business is important. And what that does is a corporate entity, whatever it is, whether it's a partnership or a limited liability company or a C Corp, it's a box. And it's a box that you put stuff in. It's a box that you put assets in. It's a box that you keep liabilities in. It's a box that you put your contracts in. It's your business. And someday you may get to the point where you're going to sell the whole box, or someday you may get to the point where you sell stuff out of the box, you sell the assets or transfer them to somebody. But that's where you use it to your advantage. And the idea behind that is that it's separate, and it's separate from your personal life, and it's separate from the other businesses that you have. Some people in this room I know have more than one business and more than one interest, or they may own a business, but they also own some commercial property. And so when you don't have corporate entities, when you don't have that structure, then everything is mishmashed all together. And the problem with that is when somebody looks at yourself, and says, well, what kind of assets can I take from that person? Then they're going to be able to look at the whole pool as opposed to containing the stuff into individual boxes. And so that's really the important part of keeping your business and your personal separate, and keeping your different business entities separate as well. The type of entity that you're going to choose really depends on a couple things. One is what kind of business you're going to have, and two is a serious conversation with an accountant or a tax professional. I say when you start your business, you need a lawyer every once in a while, and I wish you needed us every day, but you need a lawyer every once in a while. You need a lawyer to kind of get started and then check in every couple months, but you need a good bookkeeper, you need an accountant, and you need to engage that person and have that person be your friend and talk about, when you're starting, what kind of entity should I have? Because the biggest thing about a partnership or a limited liability company, which is really kind of a partnership hiding inside of a corporation, is that the revenue and the liabilities and everything get imputed up to you. Whereas in the corporate form, you can decide when you're going to pay a dividend. And so it depends on how you want to do that personally. And it also depends on who your investors are. If you bring in outside investors, and I don't do a lot of startup companies, but this was the biggest thing when I've been the general counsel of a startup company, is that we had private equity investing in the firm, in our business, and they wanted to control when the profits from, if there were profits, when the profits and when the distributions were going to come to them, because the company, the corporate form, would have to declare a dividend. So that's really the kind of the bellwether test of whether or not what entity you want. Once you get to that point, it's actually here in Texas really simple to form a corporate entity. And the Secretary of State has this really great website that allows you to do it. And you can do it on your own. We do it for clients too, but the actual, going to the Secretary of State and saying, I want to have this entity, they'll do it, and they'll do it in a number of days. It's very fast. Now, the key with that is you got to know what kind of entity you want to form. And then there's some options inside of that. And that's really where talking to an attorney ahead of time is helpful. But once you do that, then the next part of it is making sure that you have the relationship between the owners of the business set. And that's either done through a limited liability company agreement or a shareholder agreement for a C Corp. And it depends on who the investors are. If you're going to have a business where it's a husband and wife, then it's usually pretty simple. You do whatever the wife says. But usually I've written a number of those agreements, and the parties have to agree. And it's really simple. And that's for a lot of families. That's how it's set up. If it's two people that don't know one another, or it's people come together that haven't worked together before or don't have a lot of experience, it's really worth having a conversation of how are we going to manage this company? Who's going to make what decision? What happens if we don't agree? What happens if one of us wants to leave? What happens if we all don't want to do it anymore? What happens if we want to sell part of the business or bring in somebody new? These are all questions that are answered in the corporate documents that you can do. And it's hard because at the start, you want to talk about everything great. I'm going to start this business and we're going to be great. It's like, we're going to put on a show and it's going to be wonderful. It is wonderful and it's exciting, but you do need to take some time to think about what if this doesn't go so well? And that's where a lot of businesses don't do it. And they're so busy getting stood up that they don't do any of the documents. And then in Texas, we have pretty good law about how that stuff works. But it's not going to work the way you want, probably, because it's going to require all of the investors to agree on stuff. And usually people are talking to me when they don't. So that's what's important. Now I'm going to turn over the presentation to Andy O'Brien, and you have to top that.
Let's make sure. Now I have an outside voice 24/7. So for some of you, this is the splash zone. I get really excited. I may spit on you or sweat on you. I'm sorry up front. So let's talk about some things that I could sit here and talk about credentials, and I could sit here and talk about it, but most of you can read, I am assuming. But I would like a volunteer to come join me really quick. Can I get a volunteer? Oh, Jennifer, come on up. Yes. Sorry. Okay, so Jennifer, because you volunteered and you're the smartest person in the room, what do you think the median age of everybody in this room is?
60, just bigger.
You got it. Oh, that's
Probably 40, 45.
so 40, 45. All right, let's write that down. All right, so we have 45 as the age. What do you think the average years of business is for this group?
10.
10? All right, so we have 10 years. How many people are in the room? We're really going to set you up now.
I don't know. 1, 2, 3.
Now she's cooking. Charlie brings the age down. Jim brings the age up. All right, we have 20. All right, so 20.
Counted the baby too.
Okay, perfect. Hey, the baby's in a lot of business meetings. She is in a lot of business meetings. Okay, so look at this. 10 times 20 years equals what?
200.
So in this room right now,
Math on the spot.
I didn't know that. Look how good you are.
Right.
Thank you so much. Let's give Vanna a big round of applause. The reason I do that right up front is because it's really important for you all to understand that this is about y'all, not just about me. There are over 200 years of business knowledge in this room. 200 years. Some of you more, some of you less, some of you just starting. But the reality is this is a lot of knowledge. Do you think we can solve problems in here today? Yes, maybe, no, kind of. Okay, this is interactive. I need to see this, yes, voices, right? It's interactive. So let's try this again. Is this a lot of knowledge? Oh, there we go. Good job, everybody. All right, so the reason I do that right up front is because there's some words that I use often with clients, and our vision for every business is world abundance through business re-education. Most of you in this room have forgotten more about business than most know. But there's one phrase that comes to mind that I see all the time. And how many of you have kids today? Who has kids in here? Great. Have you ever heard, I know mom? I know dad. You ever hear that? No, not yet. Well, she'll talk back soon enough, right? But it's this I know. The reason I throw this up on the board is because every one of you has the same factor in your brain. I know. I've heard that before. I've already done this. I've tried it. It didn't work. And we come back to the I know. Right? When we look at I know, our job today is to get rid of the I know. I know stops you from learning anything new. Ask your kids, right? I know. When my kids were young, well, actually, I was just there with one who's 31, and she kept saying, I know, and I kept asking her, well, when are you going to do it? Because you really suck at it at this moment in time. And then she tells me things like, I don't need a coach, Andy, I need my dad. Your dad's a dick. So I tell you this because in this process today, I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff on the screen here. Jim and I are going to talk about a lot of things that you know. We're going to dress it up and deliver it in a manner that allows you to learn a little bit differently today. So can I get an agreement by raising your left hand and say, I promise not to have the I know statement? There we go. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So let's jump in if we had a remote. So let's look at this. How many of you have heard today, maybe you said it under your breath, people don't want to work today? So let's talk about that for a second. I want you guys to think about this for a minute. Jim brought me in because I'm pretty direct. Have you ever thought that people just don't want to work for you? I just looked it up yesterday. 7.1 million jobs on the job market today in the USA. 7.1. Do you know how many people are looking for jobs? 7.388 million. Guess what? What's that delta? Almost 300,000 people looking for jobs. So people have choices. So let's look at this really quickly. Shackleton's ad for Antarctic exploration. How many people applied for this job? Thousands of people, thousands of men around the corner applying for this job. Why? Right here. Honor and recognition. By the way, this is in Queen's English before the US of A got started with explorations, but Queen's English, honor, culture, right? Culture. It's so interesting today as we look at people and building a business. I always say this to people, you are never alone unless you want to be alone. So let's talk business for a second. Those of you that are here and in business, is it the most fun job you've ever had? Is it the most exciting job you've ever had? The reason I bring this up is because when you first started your business, take yourself back. Take yourself back to the beginning. Was it scary? When you look at your job when you first started, it was exciting and scary all at the same time. That's where you were supposed to be. So what changed? It got hard. What else? Boring? Anything else? Had to hire people, and then they're good people, and then there's people. Yet last week I heard, I'm like, oh my gosh, engineering firm, not like yours, but they do this high-end engineering, and I go like this, oh my gosh, you've almost idiot-proofed your business. And he turned out, looked at me and goes, you do know they're building better idiots today, right? Yep, I stole it, I'm keeping it. So let's talk about some things here. You're not alone. Ownership begins when you have the courage to let others step up, right? When you have others step up. The question is what is that step? What is that step? What is it you need to let go of in order to get it done better? And by the way, if you say there's nobody that can do it better than you, we're going to have a lot of conversations today because that's my favorite thing to challenge. Now, who's this guy? Wow, did anybody do it better than Steve Jobs? Yeah, for a little bit, and then they didn't. Who's this guy? Yes, Bezos. All right, who's this guy? What? Nobody knows this guy? Oh, interesting. This guy is the $1 trillion coach. He is $10,000 a minute, and this is the guy that Musk, Bezos, Buffett, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, this is the guy they called because they knew they couldn't do it alone. Nobody knows who this guy is. He's one of the smartest guys in the world, an actuary by trade. The reason I bring that up is, how many of you believe people are overnight successes? Nope. So let's look at some things here. They had the strength and the courage to publicly say, I can't do it alone, right? If the dream is big enough for all of you, they realize they can't do it alone. How do we bring others in to solve that challenge? You need an attorney. One of the things that we talk about all the time here in the coaching business, in the executive leadership phase, is you need an accountant, an attorney, a business coach, and a banker. Why? Because we all live in confidentiality and we all want what's best for you. So knowing when or how to bring people in the right way. Now, How many of you have a hard time or have said this? Nobody can do it better. Nobody can do it faster. I might as well just do it myself because I don't want to train anybody. Anybody ever say that? Yeah, if you haven't said this, you really aren't alive, right? We all say this. Letting go, man, I can do it better. Why train anybody? It'll just take me a minute. I said it for a long time. I was the dumbest guy in the universe for 8 years. And then we hired Taylor. Holy crap. I'd probably die if she wasn't around. So let's talk about it. It's gaining capacity. Gaining capacity in your business. Jim, you're up.
I was a corporate employee for the first 25 years of my law practice. And then I joined a law firm. So I was a partner in a small business, which is just what we're all doing. And I had worked at startups before that for a little bit. And so I thought I had an idea what it was like to run a business, but we really didn't have much of an idea, and those businesses didn't do very well. So I learned lots of what you're not supposed to do. But I was in the Heritage Office Suites, which is that way. And across the hall from me was Hot Dog Marketing. And so I got to know the people from Hot Dog Marketing and Jessica. And one of the things that you said to me early on is, I'm trying to put my team together. I need a lawyer and a banker. And it's something that I stole shamelessly from you and have used in business presentations over and over and over again. Getting the right team together is important. And that's the outside team. The inside team is when you think about, well, who am I going to bring in? And what are they going to do? And that's where you really kind of need to be smart, because lots of people will just start moving along and they're like magnets. They start picking up things. They start picking up people. And who are these people? Are they employees? Are they independent contractors? It's pretty obvious when you hire a lawyer that a lawyer is an independent contractor, because I give you this document, it's an engagement agreement, and it says, I'm going to do this and this and this. I'm going to do it in this amount of time, and you're not going to tell me what to do, and I'm going to send you a bill and you're going to pay. That's essentially what the engagement agreement says. When you bring in other people and you think they're an independent contractor, well, what about them makes them an independent contractor versus an employee? And because I've had lots of clients that have said, well, I got these people and they're independent contractors, and I got these people and they're employees, and they're doing the same stuff. There's nothing that differentiates them. And the problem is that just because you say that somebody's an independent contractor, it doesn't make him an independent contractor. The government actually has a 35-point or so test on who's an independent contractor, and it talks about what they do and how much control you have over their work, and can you make them come into the office? Do you give them the equipment? All this stuff about how much are they really acting like an employee, or are they acting like somebody that's doing a project for you? Honestly, is where this comes. And so you need to think about, well, what am I going to do? And it's very much a practical thing. It's not much of a legal thing as, well, what kind of help do I need? How long do I need it? And how much money do I have? Those are the things to think about. And sometimes that tends towards, well, I only need somebody a short time for this project. I need to say that they're an independent contractor. Sometimes I need somebody for a longer time, but they're only going to be temporary. Well, they would probably be an independent contractor too. Or are they going to be an employee? And where this is so important is if the relationship ends with that employee and they're not happy, then they're going to go to this wonderful organization called the Texas Workforce Commission. And they're going to say, I was an employee and I didn't get any benefits of being an employee. And that was the understanding I had, even though you may have talked to them and they may, everything is all verbal and all that stuff. Disgruntled people change the rules. And so then you got to explain to the Workforce Commission what your relationship was with this employee and how does it work. And they're going to want to see documentation, and they're going to want to see how the relationship actually played out for real, and not what you guys said in a side conversation. Formulate the plan and then document what that is. And then also remember that when you bring these folks in, depending on what status they have, you're going to have a responsibility to them and to the state in terms of tax, paying unemployment, reporting requirements. You have to go get signed up on stuff. And if you hire employees that are in a different state, which I know some of you do, there's a whole bunch of rules in that state that apply to that employee. And you can't say, we're a Texas company, doesn't matter that that person lives in California, California rules don't apply. Well, the California rules apply, and they apply just the same as if you were located in California. I've had companies come from California to Round Rock and they have a 100-page handbook and you try to Texasize it, which actually makes it a 40-page handbook. Depending on what state you're dealing with, there's lots of rules that you need to deal with. And you also need to pay an employment tax, and you need to report that you're doing business in that state because you have an employee. And so there's a lot that you have to consider. And it's all goes to, I'm going to do this. You got your team together, you got your lawyer, you got your accountant, have a conversation with them and just say, what am I supposed to do here? What do you think I ought to do? And if they're any good, you're going to have that conversation and they're going to be interested in helping you build your business. And it's not going to be this transactional thing. It's going to be, I want to help you grow. I want to help you get better. It's the actually going through the motions of getting the business registered as a foreign company in that state and connecting them up with the state taxing and employment authorities. That's the part that I actually charge money for. And that's the part where you guys as business owners, you need to make a decision as to whether or not you want to go through that before you hire the person. A lot of times I get it where it's like, oh yeah, I got this person in such and such state and they're working for me. What do I do? Well, then we're kind of in, and we need to engineer the relationship after that. So that's just think about what you're doing before you do it, which is kind of the theme of today.
All right, at your tables, really quick, why do you think for yourself, hold on to everything and try to do it on their own? Now, I heard you guys speak last night, right? Leverage. We outsource it. Marketing companies, attorneys. There is the leverage, but in most cases I see this, it's a lot of people don't understand leverage and they do it all themselves. So let's keep going here. How many of you guys, I heard it earlier, you talked about like you were a really good technician, right? You were really good at your job. Did that make you a really good business owner? No. Have you had to learn a few things since then? So Del, how many of you guys have ever been, or have you ever abdicated to a team member, right? Just go do it. How many of you have ever hired Bobby's sister's cousin who was a dog walker because they were really good at social media? So you just hired them to do that? And then it went sideways? Delegating tasks, but you can't delegate culture. Skill versus will. You can assign roles and standards, but you can't outsource the mindset of responsibility, right? Real engine room of ownership is this: results. How many of you aren't getting the results you deem necessary in your business? Let me be clear. Revenue is a vanity matrix. I could give two craps about what that top line says. The real number's at the bottom that says net income. How do I put that in your pocket, right? How many of you are making as much profit as you want? Profit's hard. Profit is hard, right? Especially in a service organization. So let's look at this for 1 second. Winning teams. Let me give you the 6 areas of a winning team. Write these down if you want. Number 1, strong leadership. That is you. If you do nothing, haven't learned any, watch no videos, see no books, read no books, you are not a leader. Leaders learn every day. Number 2, common goal. In the room like this with business owners, I can talk about profit. I can talk about revenue. I can talk about things like that. To your team, they do not care when you start talking about lining your pocket. We have to have a common goal. Number 3, rules of the game. Now, Jim said it earlier, but I'm going to just stamp this one. Rules of the game, are all the things that previous employees have done to piss you off. We are, right, Jim? 90% of every rule you write for a business is based on 10% of the employees, right? Well, I didn't see that one coming. Oh, that's a better idiot. Guess we're going to write this one up now in the handbook, right? Rules of the game. Number 4, this one throws people sideways every day. Do as I say, not as I do, but the rule is a game plan, a plan of action. What is everybody doing today, tomorrow, the next day? What's after that? We plan every quarter. Number 5, any of you guys ever made a mistake? What? Jim, that's fine. I know you haven't. I'm sorry. Allow risk taking. You learn by mistakes. How come the people in your organization can't make mistakes and you throw a hissy fit? They learn by making mistakes after you put bumpers on the bowling alley to show them how they can play all out. The next area, 100% inclusion. Nothing sends a business sideways as you build silos within an organization. This is a winning team. Now, the next thing we have is winning culture. What is culture, right? What is culture? Who wants to define what is culture for me? Jim.
It's atmosphere. It's how everybody thinks about the company every day.
Yeah, it is. I call it a give a shit gene, right? They show up, they want to be there. What else is culture? Everybody's working towards the goal. This is what sets culture apart, that gets people killed in business. Do as I say, not as I do. You're not allowed to have a bad day, but you walk around stomping your feet, being all pissed off at the world because something went wrong. Oh, you're having a tiff with another employee, your spouse, within the organization. And then they see it. Winning culture is you live and die by it. If you have a problem, you take it outside. In business, we reward in public, we discipline in private. Now, learning culture. What is a learning culture? It's really interesting. I have a group of PhDs, MDs, doctorates, MBAs that I work with on a regular basis. And it was really interesting. I asked the question, what makes you a leader? And as you can imagine, one of the people stood up, because I have 21 years of education to be an MD. Can anyone of you guess what my response was to that? It wasn't politically correct by any means, but it just makes you a problem. Learning culture is, what do you as a business owner need to learn next in order to inspire your people? That MD talked about how smart he was and how everybody should just listen to him because he was so smart. And the reality was he hadn't taken one class in the 20 years since he got his graduation as an MD on any leadership skills, and he couldn't believe people wouldn't just believe him. That's ego. Learning culture is teaching the people around us what they need to know, giving them the tools and the resources to learn. One of my favorite quotes is, because I'm a male and I'm 55, there is a lot of 50-plus-year-old men walking around the world that are just waiting to die because they refuse to learn anything new. They refuse to learn anything new, and that goes right to your point, right? It's just perspective, right? Learn from everybody. When we talk about culture, it is a living organism within your business. It's a living organism. People see everything, and if you're going to do it, they're going to do it. And nothing demotivates a good employee than your tolerance of a bad one. How many of you have ever used the term, I'm busy? The term busy is the new stupid in business. Of course you're busy. You're supposed to be. When I look at business owners, when I see scalability, it's their ability to work on themselves and the ability to work on the business.
So I was going to talk about, how do you do all that stuff and keep it legal is really a question. Legal strategies for motivating employees. And, you know, the first thing, and this was for me, the first startup I ever worked at was an enormous lesson in terms of culture and motivation and working on the business and having the right people in the right place. And one of the things that they did is gave absolutely no thought to what's going to move the needle for people in the business in terms of motivating. Because we had a leadership group who I had worked with previously, and I thought these guys are going to be great. And they came in and said, we're going to give everybody stock options. Stock options are great, but stock options aren't great when the company isn't making any revenue. Stock options aren't great when the company is struggling to go one step forward, two steps back. Now, stock options are great in the long term, and for the right executive, the right people, the right thing. But what really motivates people? Does a flexible work schedule motivate people? Does being able to work at home sometimes motivate people? What really motivates stuff for employees that they want to be there and they want to be working on your business and they think this is a great place to work and it's so much more than, well, we're going to make you an owner. You own 1%. You know, I could own 1% of hot dog marketing and it would be great. Would that make me think like an owner? Probably not. And then what if I went and I wanted to go work somewhere else? What would happen with that 1%? So that's where thinking about the stuff ahead of time is really, really important, and documenting everything is really important. And so the culture part of this is really strong, because it's like, how are we going to build this culture where employees feel motivated, where team members feel motivated, where folks that I am getting involved in this business want to do right for the business. And part of that is communication and strategies of, hey, this is where we're going and we want everybody on board, which is not really legal advice, but it is what I've learned. And it's what gets you through the one step forward, two steps back, which is what starting a business is like most of the time. But when you do roll out these programs, there has to be rules and they got to get written down. And that's where I can help. And that's where having good HR support can help. The startup I was talking about, I had the pleasure of being not only in charge of legal, but also in charge of HR. So I got to move all that stuff together. When the folks that worked there were calling me the HR person more than the legal person, that's when I knew it was time to leave. But you know, documentation is key, and it's really key when you're going to give somebody effort, because you know, I could claim that I own 10% of Jennifer's engineering business. If it's not written down, but we talked about it and she said yes, and it's there. So, and I get lots of disputes that's what the genesis of it is that it's over you said you promised me X and it never happened. And now that we've made a whole bunch of money, I want my X. And other people in the business are saying, we didn't give you that. That's not what we promised. We promised this other thing, or you're nuts, And so contracts are key. Documentation is key. And if you're going to give away your equity, then you should document it. If you're going to do a bonus plan, you should really document that. And that goes into the whole discussion about what goals are and, making, smart,
specific, measurable, achievable, realistic in a time frame.
Thank you. So, but laying that out and laying it out for each individual person and explaining the circumstances of when they're going to get their bonus and when they won't get their bonus. One of the things that I can help with specifically is if you really want to bring people in and you want to have them think like owners, but you don't want to actually physically give them equity, you can do a virtual equity plan. It's like having options. It's like having stock, but it's really just a fancy bonus. And it's something that I've done with a number of companies. And you tend to do it for more senior people. For me, the prime example of that is it's a family business. The patriarch or matriarch of the family wants the business to stay in the family, but they want to bring in people that are going to help the business grow. They're smart enough to know that the kids aren't going to be able to do it themselves. And so they brought in help, and they've done a virtual equity plan that rewards the other people just the same as the family, but the equity doesn't get all tied up with that. And the last thing I'm going to talk about in this is that in any of this, you need to specify what happens if the person leaves, if the employee leaves, if the contractor leaves. Ideally, you want to have it written down if you intend to not give that person any kind of benefit if when they leave, that's the nature of the plan. You must be present to win, And the problem with equity is actual ownership. So if I worked at Jessica's company and she gave me equity and I left, I would still be an owner unless there's some kind of plan in place that when I leave, something happens to that equity. And there's lots of plans. There's a plan where that it vests over time. There's plans where it all is vested right away, and there's a forfeiture right that falls off as you're there. But it's the kind of thing that you need to remember that unless you think this person's in for the long term, they're going to own part of your company. And if you want them to leave, then you're going to have to buy them out. And depending on the circumstances of when you gave it to them and how you gave it to them, you may not have a unilateral right to do that unless you define that right and you get agreement. So think about that.
Excellent. All right. So let's talk about which one of these businesses would you want? So the reason is remember I said that in the beginning, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. Net income is more important than top line revenue. Why do I bring this up? Because when we talk about business, profitability, if it's not on the top of your mind, it's a problem. It is a big problem. So if you're running $1 million business and you're turning $999,999, are you a good business owner? No, you're not. So let me ask you this. If you gave me $20 today and I promised you $10,000 in 3 years, would you do that deal? Absolutely. Everybody, exactly. So when we talk about things like this, making money systematically for your business is important to ownership, but it's also important to employees. The challenge that we all face with that is you have bills to pay. You have overhead expenditures. You got phone bills. Remember when phone bills were like $69? You could make 4 calls. It was 5 minutes. That's right. It was 5 minutes. Our job is to help you create the money machine in your business. Because if there's no profit, there's no passion. And if you're not paying yourself, there's a multitude of challenges going on. Now, the profit system, right? It's not about selling more. It's selling smarter. It's making more money. It's adding things up. Most times when I walk into a business, I ask them this simple question. What is your business going to do next year? What do you want it to be? When we start looking at these businesses, we start looking at every way that we can increase profitability for you. So if we look at this, we do this without overthinking it. Now, don't get me wrong. Leads is the end result of an entire marketing machine. We have marketing people in here. They can backfill it with MQLs and SQLs and all the other stats that go with it that we have to have. Everybody has to deliver efficiently today, just like your employees. It's called standards. How many of you have a 25% conversion rate today of all your sales? How many of you measure? All right. Well, we measure everything, right? So 25%, that's for 4, that's 1, right? So we have 1,000 customers. Transactions. This is my favorite one right here. How many of you go to the beauty salon? Sorry, Jennifer and I were on the same page. Okay, so Heather, how many times a year do you go to the beauty salon? Every 6 weeks. Okay, so here's the question. Why is it every 6 weeks? Believe it or not, your beautician is leaving a lot of money on the table, because if she could cycle you through there every 4 weeks, that's 13 cycles a year. When we start plugging these into the business and we actually have the metrics that go with it, this allows the business to grow. The idea of this is to help you start measuring what matters. Customers, revenue, and profit is a stagnant number. It is only good after everything else is done. It only matters when you measure it. It's amazing. I have a lot of clients that are out of the TAB Association because they get a business owner who says their business is worth $5 million and they do everything. Part of our journey today as we talk to you guys about this is we have to get you out of all the seats in the business. Jim talked about it in his opening statement. In order to have a sellable asset or generational wealth, people aren't going to buy you. I believe the stat, and you correct me if I'm wrong, isn't the stat today 75% of all businesses on the marketplace are not selling? And there's a multitude of reasons. We know they're not selling because people today are being very picky. They want this number right here. They're buying this. They're not buying all this other stuff. They're buying this. They want to know that they can turn. If you work with private equity or any of the big companies right there, they want that payback in 2 to 3 years. And they are turning things. I'm going to show you a real example here really quick. This is a client. They are next door to our office here. When people start measuring, it really matters. And I call him a kid. I get in trouble all the time. He's a whopping 34. He knows his numbers. His business is growing. He just had the largest sales month he's ever had because he measures everything now. And this guy's an engineer. He's like Jennifer, but he's on steroid, wanting to look at every spreadsheet, every piece of equipment. We need to know the math in the business. As you go to set it up and you want more, the reason I point at profit all the time is one, I'm a capitalist, but two, if you're making money, how much easier is it to hire good people? It's so much better. Have you guys ever heard this? If you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. Yeah. How many of you guys have ever hired a monkey? Yeah, it happens. It's like you're the circus. When you go looking for people, how many of you guys hire on Indeed or Glassdoor, things like that, right? You hire unemployed people, you get unemployed problems. We look at all of these things all the time. I want you to be able to pay the next best person. And I'm sorry, I want you to go steal employees, right? I know that's not very Canadian of me, but it doesn't matter. We're in America. I want you to go and find the best employees for your organization. Now, it's really funny. He actually took, when we did this the first time, he'd taken seven days off. He just actually was able to buy a brand new house with his wife, and they're expecting their third. And he took another vacation. Right? Not because he wanted to, but because his dad passed away. And he was able to leave the office again, and everything still went well. So let me show you, right, the future, worry or enthusiasm. We work with Jim and his team constantly. Jim has been a great supporter. Everything that Jim talked about today, Jim worked with us on it because we had to get rid of a partner. And when I say get rid of it, if it wouldn't have been for Jim, we'd have been in really deep shit. But because of Jim and doing everything on the front side and Jim's 7th or 8th sense that he had, he's like, nope, I don't trust him. Write all this shit in. This is why we use Jim and his team, because they work for us. I want to show you the last thing on the chart about our system. When we work with you, with Jim, when we talk about things up here, this is an initial meeting. This is free. Right? This is free, 2 weeks of coaching. Right here, the first step that we have these meetings with them, and we use terms like alignment, but let's just say if you have partners or you have significant others, we bring husbands and wives into these meetings to make sure we understand all the rules. There's nothing that worse than I go to work with a business owner, whether it's a husband, a wife, a partner, and one partner says this, and I ask the significant other about it, and they're like, I hate that business. That'd have been some great information to have in the first time. So we get together and we meet, right? We call it an alignment, but it's just a meeting, right? This is usually 2 to 4 hours. Now our system helps you guys recognize what that is. And then what we do is this is where the really meat and potatoes of it. This is January, this is March, this is June, this is September, and this is December. This is where all the stuff just happens. You guys were just at planning. There are 52 weeks in a year. Believe it or not, when we work with clients in gym, we plan for all 52 weeks, unless you're on holiday, vacation, or out of the office. The magic happens here because there's 13 weeks. Every one of these has 13 weeks, and no, my numbers are not the same. I'm trying to get faster. But right here is December, there's 12. We plan an annual plan with all of our clients. Annual plan, January to December, what's gonna happen in your business. The next thing we do is we back into it in January, and this is what happens with those business people. Nothing's moving. Choices, remember? Oh my gosh, I had this plan. Check, got it off the box. I had something else I needed to get done. Oh my gosh, I checked it off the box. Oh my gosh, I had another one, I checked it. Oh, the next week, oh, we missed. Okay, not a big deal. The next week we tackled 2 of them. In the weeks of the year, with process improvement and planning, this is where the real money is. This is where profit comes from in the business by hitting the goals every week. This is delegation. Yes, in our workbook and the stuff, do you know that there are over 650 areas of your business you may not even know about? Some of them are non-applicable, some of them are really applicable. But our job is to help you determine what is the most important thing for your business. And then once you determine what's the most important, then what is the tactical or key activity indicator that needs to happen in order to check it off the list? This is critically important. This is the system, right? This is what we plug into a business that allows you guys to have massive growth. On the board, I put a QR code. Like I tell everybody, we have 2 weeks of free coaching for everybody in this room, right? We do it for you because we want more for this community. We have a firm of 8 people right now. We have 5 coaches. We have coaches all over the world. We coach consultants all the time because building a business is second nature to us. So if you have something that you want to grow, please click on the QR code, sign up. We will send you all the free information. Taylor or Daisy will reach out to you and get you on the calendars. Thank you very much. Jim.
If you have legal questions, please reach out and we'll talk to you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate you guys, as always. And like I said, if you need anything, please let us know. If you want to just have coffee, we're good for that too.